move over to the running backs in redraft. And let's start with the one that's going first in this class. Is probably number one on most dynasty rankings as well. Najee Harris.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, going 18th overall, mid-second round. As far as running backs go, you're sandwiching him between Joe Mixon, Antonio Gibson, Nick Chubb, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's kind of in that tier. Right below Mixon I think is a perfect spot for Najee Harris to be. The only worry that I have is the efficiency.
Sure.
Because we know the volume's going to be there.
Here's how I feel about Najee, and I know we're both in on him, which is exciting. He's a top 10 running back for me, and the reason being is high floor, high ceiling. I mean, that's all you can ask for in fantasy, and with Najee Harris, because we do know the volume's going to be there, we know the carries are going to be there, we know he's going to be using the receiving game, that makes Najee Harris have such a high floor. We've seen inefficient running backs finish in the top 12 just because they get carries. We saw Josh Jacobs do it last year, 3.9 yards per carry, finished as a top 10 back. We've seen Joe Mixon have extreme success with inefficiency in the past as well from a fantasy football perspective. So with Najee, because the volume's there, that provides that high floor. And the ceiling comes in what if he actually does have great efficiency? What if the Steelers offense is clicking and Najee Harris gets 13 touchdowns this year? What if the offensive line improves for whatever reason, even though they didn't do much to address it in the offseason, and Najee Harris and his talent is able to pick up 4.2 to 4.4 yards per carry? Like, that's where the upside comes in, because if he gets 250 to 300 carries and 60 to 80 targets in this offense, there's no way, barring injury, that he's finishing outside of the top 12 running backs. So I think Najee is safe, and I also think he has upside, which makes him someone I'm targeting early and often in these late first, early second rounds of drafts.
If you add up Benny Snell and James Conner from last year, we're talking 280 carries in this backfield for the taking. Now, is Benny Snell going to go away completely? Probably not. He'll be a good change of pace. Breather back. I'm sure we'll get some Anthony McFarland.
Change of pace. He'll be slowing down the pace. I mean, that's about it.
Hey, you got Anthony McFarland. I'm still holding out little tidbits of hope for run AMC, as they call him, as a third down, explosive option there. Yeah, I'm probably the only one that calls him that, to be honest. But there's also another 60, 70 targets to running backs available as offense as well.
Sure.
So, I mean, do we expect Najee to take all of that year one? I mean, that'd be a little aggressive to go and project that, but that's certainly in the range of outcomes. That's what a ceiling could be. And the efficiency could be there, even though we don't have the athletic measurables because he skipped the pro days this year. Najee Harris looks quick when he's out on the field. Him with that 230-pound, 6-foot frame, he's going to be trucking defenders. He moves like a ballerina, so he's going to juke you out of your shoes too. There's just so many ways that Najee Harris can win, and then on top of that, give him some goal line touches. I think this year, really, the debate is going to be, do you go take a Davante Adams or an A.J. Brown or a DeAndre Hopkins or Calvin Ridley? These guys that should be the clear, one target hog on their team. Or do you take a high floor and high ceiling running back like Joe Mixon, like Najee Harris, like Antonio Gibson? I'm leaning the running back there just from the drafts that I've done. I haven't been quite as happy with those rosters where I have taken A.J. Brown, especially now with Julio coming into the picture, even though I'm still really high on him. You just got to account for that, because those are the real decisions that are going to be made when we're sitting in the second round in our redraft leagues.
100%. And yeah, I think Najee is as simple and safe as they come when we look at him as a player. And if people are fading him because they're worried about the offensive line, capitalize on that. But let's go ahead and move on to a couple of these other names, Stef, that are going to have some redraft appeal, but aren't going to be as safe as a guy like Najee Harris. A couple names I want to throw out are Travis Etienne and Javonte Williams. Etienne right now going 49th overall, so that's late 4th, early 5th round. Javonte's going 66th overall, so that's the middle of the 6th round. Javonte's going as the RB27. What's your take on Etienne and Javonte? What do you think about these ADPs? And to me, I think it makes sense. I mean, I'll take Etienne over Javonte all day for 2021, especially if it's a PPR format. But what do you think about Etienne for 2021?
The difference between Javonte and Etienne is that Etienne has way less of an uphill battle
Yeah.
to overcome. We have the locker room narrative between Trevor Lawrence and Etienne. Like, T-Law's not going to be happy if his boy's not getting on the field. And this is a player that, I mean, he had a 12% target share his senior year at Clemson. 12% target share for a running back in college is exceptional. It almost never happens. And what we see most of the time, it's not the end-all be-all like most things when we talk about stats are, but most of the time, running backs that were used as pass catchers in college get used as pass catchers even more at the pro level. And I think that's where Etienne's value is going to come in. And I think he's going to be on the field from week one, from game one, getting a lot of pass catching work, probably some carries on the ground as well. We're talking 8 to 12 carries a game with something like 5 to 6 targets a game. I think that's going to be phenomenal for him. Hopefully he can break away a few of those, be a very efficient runner, get a few touchdowns. And then Javonte Williams is facing a lot more as far as the current back that's there that he has to outproduce. Even though James Robinson was this fantasy monster last year, it's more of a situation necessarily than the talent. Melvin Gordon has been, one, he was drafted a lot earlier, James Robinson undrafted. So right there alone, NFL teams are telling us how they value these guys. But with Melvin Gordon, he had some pretty strong games last season while splitting carries with Phillip Lindsay. I'm wondering if, maybe the DUI punishment finally makes it into 2021, because I don't think Melvin Gordon was suspended for any time after that. Maybe that's the one path for Javonte Williams to get on the field and play the RB1 role within the first 6 weeks of the season. I'm certainly hoping for it as an investor, but when you look at Javonte Williams at RB27, I think that's a fine ADP. The risk is already baked in there. And then for Etienne, as a guy who's going mid to late fourth round, that's phenomenal value. That fits the same appeal that DeAndre Swift had last year in leagues, where you go running back, wide receiver for the first 3 rounds, and then you get that third upside running back that if they hit, now your team becomes an instant contender to win the whole league, assuming those running backs can stay healthy, because not many teams, especially if we're talking 14-team leagues, a lot of teams don't even have 2 strong starting running backs. So if you can start your draft with, let's just say, Saquon Barkley, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Terry McLaurin, and Travis Etienne,
that's nice.
You're feeling really, really strong. You're feeling really good about that. And that's a real start that you can have. I've had those starts in some of these best ball drafts on Underdog. So Travis Etienne is the premier robust RB option. If you're circling back after that 3rd round, after you've grabbed that wide receiver 1, go ahead and take Etienne to be a strong RB3 with boom upside. And Etienne is a guy just like DeAndre Swift, has the pass catching skill set. That's his comp. If you want NFL.com right now, the NFL's telling us that they comp him to DeAndre Swift. Urban Meyer's already come out and said Etienne's going to play the 3rd down role. So this is a guy that I'm expecting to see something like 60 targets this year. And again, if those are efficient, he's going to destroy the ADP at 49th overall, late 4th round.
Yeah, I agree. Etienne to me is a better Chase Edmonds. As far as a role goes, I think it's going to be similar. You're going to get some work on the ground, going to be used a lot in the receiving game. But Etienne's just a much better player. And I think he could even exceed Edmonds' workload in 2021, especially when we see that he got that first-round draft capital, so important for running back. So I'm with you on Etienne. You get him as a 3rd running back in that scenario, especially in PPR leagues, you are set up nice. And even if you decide to mix it up and go early tight end, maybe you start out with a Saquon Barkley, you scoop a Darren Waller, you go with the Terry McLaurin in the 3rd, and you come back with Etienne as your RB2 in a PPR league in the back of the 4th round. Really strong start. So I love Etienne at that value. I'll scoop him up all day. I have been taking a lot of Etienne in these Underdog best ball drafts. And then as far as Javonte goes, I'm with you. I think as an RB3 on your roster, really good value. If he is your RB3, you have time to let him sit on your bench, see how involved he is in the offense, see if he starts to get ramped up as the season goes on. But to your point with Melvin Gordon there, I think that does cap the upside for 2021. In that 6th round, there's probably going to be some receivers I really, really like. So that's where, I have trouble going receiver early and waiting and taking a guy like Javonte when I would rather just take an early running back and smash on a really strong receiver there in the 6th round, like a Cooper Kupp type of guy. So that's the challenge for me. And as long as Melvin Gordon is healthy, I think it is going to be tough for Javonte to see that upside. As far as that DUI charge goes, first of all, come on, Melvin Gordon, be better. But second of all, I'm pretty sure, don't quote me on this, I think it got dismissed, or I think it got settled. So I don't think he is expected to see punishment from the NFL. But again, I'm not 100% sure. Obviously, if that came into play, it would be a big boost for Javonte, especially early in his career. But yeah, I think both these guys are fine at their ADP. I definitely like Etienne in the late fourth better than I like Javonte in the mid sixth at this point. But I think both are okay. And then as far as some deeper running backs go, Steph, let's talk about Trey Sermon and let's talk about Michael Carter. I think these are probably the only other two running backs we're going to consider for redraft in 2021. Sermon right now, 74th overall, 701. That is pretty early to me. And then Michael Carter, a very polarizing player right now, going in the early 8th round, 89th overall. So, Steph, talk to me about Trey Sermon and Michael Carter, two guys going kind of in that next tier of running backs, guys you can definitely scoop up as an RB3 on your roster. But what do you think about these values right now?
And I got to say, I like Michael Carter's ADP. I would feel comfortable taking him there, even as an RB4.
Sure.
If I'm going with an RB-heavy roster. We know Michael Carter, even though the draft capital wasn't what we wanted it to be, he was a day 3 pick. Granted, it was early 4th round, so maybe we can round up and say it's 3rd round. But the limited investment, again, the question, just like with Zach Wilson, like, yes, we know he's going to start from week 1. We don't even know that necessarily with Michael Carter. It sounds like Tevin Coleman will start the year out, at least what the Jets are going to put out on their depth chart is Tevin Coleman. Who knows, usage-wise, if that actually plays itself out. There seems to be a seniority complex in a lot of NFL locker rooms where you're just going to put the oldest guy number 1. We're going to put Mark Ingram over J.K. Dobbins to start the year. You know, that type of mindset is what we're going to see a ton. So I'm not putting even too much stock in these depth charts that are coming out. So for that reason, I love Michael Carter just because of the insane upside that he has if he is a true 3-down workhorse in this offense that's really starting from square one with a new quarterback, new coaches, new scheme. The Adam Gase funk is kind of gone from New York. And then with Trey Sermon, I understand the appeal of a running back going to the San Francisco 49ers because a Kyle Shanahan running back's usually productive. They're usually efficient. I mean, we've seen an RB1 overall season from Devonta Freeman under Kyle Shanahan, but people are a little bit too aggressive with this, in my opinion. I actually find Trey Sermon more appealing in Dynasty if we're talking about early 7th round because this year it's a mountain to climb. It's a pretty big uphill battle for Trey Sermon to come in and not only move his way up this depth chart into enough volume to be a fantasy producing running back, but we also need him to be hyper efficient. And there's no guarantee based on what he's done in college that he is going to be a hyper efficient runner. Now, I think Trey Sermon can break tackles. He does have some pretty good pass catching chops. Maybe a year or two from now, he is the bona fide RB1 for the San Francisco 49ers. But right now he has Jeff Wilson. I know Jeff Wilson will probably start the year injured, but he'll be back in the lineup before you know it. Raheem Mostert still seems to be the guy there. He's on a pretty cheap deal, but he is still there, and he was the one, or at least the 1A last season and the year before when this team was making Super Bowl runs. Wayne Gallman brought in on a 1-year deal. And then you also got Elijah Mitchell, another guy that we like. Go check out our channel. Here's some of our takes on this backfield dichotomy between Trey Sermon and Elijah Mitchell. But all of those factors are reasons why I hate this early 7th round ADP on Trey Sermon. I just don't see how he hits the ceiling unless all of these guys get injured and Trey Sermon comes in and is a super efficient running back, which he never really was in college. He did have some boom games, but was never able to do it consistently. He had injury issues. He had efficiency issues. We saw him have those, high workload games at Ohio State. But was that more of the workload in the situation where Fields is kind of breaking down? They got to pivot the offense, or is that Trey Sermon being just a monster? I don't know. I haven't seen enough from Sermon to really say that was him being a beast of his own on the field.
Yeah, I agree with you. And man, it's not that I don't think there is potential for Sermon to break out. I mean, if the ball bounces his way and he gets that starting role in San Francisco, he's going to be great. We saw JaMychal Hasty starting games and having productive weeks for San Francisco last year. Jerick McKinnon was a top 15 running back through like 4 or 5 weeks of the season. So it's definitely possible for this immaculate opportunity to open up for Trey Sermon, but taking him at the 701 is almost putting your money on that happening. Like, there's a big difference between betting on something to happen and acknowledging that there's a possibility for it to happen. And to me, Sermon at the 701 is trying to say that him breaking out this season is a likelihood rather than a possibility. So I'm out on him at that ADP. You know, if that was 9th, 10th round, I'd be willing to take the shot on him. But in the 7th, there's just some good players on the board for me to be taking Trey Sermon there, who might not ever get a chance to get that backfield to himself with all the names that you just mentioned. And then Michael Carter, I hate how much I'm agreeing with you so far, Steph, but Michael Carter, 8th round, I'm cool with it. And he's a guy I've definitely been fading in Dynasty, but now that we are talking about redraft, Michael Carter has running back 2 upside. And in the 8th round, that's fantastic. He could be like a Nyheim Hines plus almost in New York if he gets the reps and starts to earn that job. The thing with Michael Carter is he's not going to be a 3-down workhorse. He's not going to be a James Robinson in New York. And there definitely are concerns about the offense and how it's going to be in 2021 as well. But for Michael Carter, I think the upside is there, and I think 8th round is reasonable value. Now, there is a chance that Tevin Coleman or Ty Johnson or one of these guys are the 1st and 2nd down running back for the majority, if not all of the season, and Carter is nothing more than a change of pace guy. But we're talking about Michael Carter competing with Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman, as opposed to some of these more proven assets that we've talked about already, like Javonte Williams with Melvin Gordon and Trey Sermon with Raheem Mostert, for example. So for Michael Carter, there's definitely a clear path to playing time, and that opportunity is something I look for in these rookies. I definitely want guys that are going to be on the field, even if by a matter of circumstance, than guys that have to jump several guys on the depth chart that are proven assets to get that playing time. So I'm cool with Carter in the early 8th, definitely fading Sermon in that 7th round. But yeah, these rookie running backs are fun stuff. I think by the end of the year, we'll definitely see a couple of these guys break out.